This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Joining me now, John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to see you, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure, or usually, and always good to be invited to visit with you.
All right, let's begin with, we're going to talk about some arrows later, but you do have one called Confusion in your Sunday column. So we're going to start with some things.
Confusion has an arrow up, yes.
Things that are confusing us, and that is issue number 2, which will be on the ballot and counted. It's the Pope County anti-casino amendment. Why don't you tell me why it is causing you and others confusion?
I wrote a column about it about 10 days ago, and I had several readers tell me it was the worst column I'd ever written. And I suspect there's some truth in that. I tried to take a whimsical look at all the misleading things being said from both sides, and nobody could really follow it. But I went to Fayetteville, took a little trip the other day to speak to a group, and I visited with them, and then I visited with people at lunch, and they said, just tell me what issue 2 is. And I looked them in the eye, and I told it as clearly as I could, and their eyes glazed over, and they didn't. And then they said, so we need to vote this way for this or this way for this, and they had it backwards.
Yes.
So these are like interested, informed people who want to cast responsible votes. Not all of the people who will be voting on this are in that category. Fortunately, it's not going to make a great difference to our lives if they get it wrong, or if they get it different from they intend, or if they don't have any idea what they're doing. Basically, issue 2 is a proxy war between the Choctaw Nation of wanting to protect itself from competition for its Oklahoma border casino, and the Cherokee Nation, which if they get to do a casino in Pope County, they'll be the ones to do it most likely. They're funding the two sides. They're fashioning the messages. The Choctaw Nation is aligned with fundamentalist church groups in Russellville who are opposed to casino gambling. So there's that. The only underlying principle I find in it is that when we passed the amendment allowing Saracen, Oaklawn, and Southland to have casinos, we threw in, for some reason that you may remember, I don't, Pope County. Pope County, in that election, voted significantly against the amendment, the one forcing a casino on it against its wishes, as explained or as demonstrated in that vote. So they're saying give us local control with an amendment that would give state control and not really address local control. But the point is, if you think Pope County should not have to accept a casino that it voted against in the election that authorized that casino in the constitutional amendment, then you would vote for issue 2. It's not really local control, but if you just don't think as a principle, that's right, that because they voted against it several years ago, they shouldn't have to take it now, then your option would be to vote for issue 2. But they're calling it a local control amendment, but it really removes local control. The other side, if you think it would be good for the state to have one more casino, if we'd get some road money, and if it would help the economy of the state, and help that part of the state, and you don't think we ought to worry about competing with an Oklahoma border casino, and you like the fact that a little road money comes out of this as well, highway money, and that the people of the state voted for it, so it ought to, in a constitutional amendment, then you would vote against issue 2 and leave the status quo. Is any of that clear to you, Roby? Did you?
I think, well, I've followed it all along, but I've had similar conversations with people that I also consider to be quite informed on a lot of political issues, and they too got it backwards, like your friends described it to you when you had that conversation.
Yeah. Basically, I boiled it down at the talk I made to, if in a proxy war between the Choctaw Nation and the Cherokee Nation, if you have a preference, vote that. If the principle of they shouldn't have to take this casino, if as a voting group they didn't want it, then you vote for issue 2. Just don't pay any attention to it, the television advertising or the messaging. It only misleads you or clouds the issue. It's really a fight between people with money and lawyers, political consultants, and lobbyists, a few of which are doing very well over this entire matter. And fortunately, and I know this is a whimsical view that people object to, it's not going to affect most of us. Whether there's a casino in Pope County or not is not something. I'm not saying don't take the vote seriously. Just some people are just wringing their hands trying to figure this out and getting more confused the more they think about it. And it's really, well, I'm not going to say it's not worth that. Any vote of the people is worth that. Good for them for trying to get it right. May they do so by the time they vote.
We shall
meaning this week, because early voting has begun, right, this week.
It's right on Monday. So not to add to the confusion, it's not in your column on Sunday, but we still don't have a ruling from the Supreme Court on the medical marijuana amendment and whether or not its votes will be counted. It will be on the ballot, but not necessarily will we know if the votes will count or not. So you think about adding to the confusion, people are going to go in and vote for something that they don't even know is going to be counted. So that will, I think, further complicate things for voters.
Yes. Meantime, various other direct democracy initiated acts or constitutional amendments for the ballot that we were all thinking we were going to have all got thrown off. The entire public initiative and referendum process is in a state of volatility at present in Arkansas. But it's the purest form of it.
That's by design, though. I mean, the Arkansas legislature has thrown up a number of new barriers to getting this done because it was.
Now, they don't want it to be clear. They don't want it to be too commonplace because the people. Well, they can say why, but the Republican legislature is firmly in control. There's not a viable loyal opposition as yet, and. So they got to have somebody to defend against, and I think it's public initiatives, so that they have made it in recent years, obviously, much more difficult than it once was to get these things on the ballot and voted on.
So confusion gets an arrow up. Let's move to some other arrows. Donald Trump gets an arrow down. Tell me why you think he gets an arrow down when he is on the precipice of potentially being reelected.
Because I don't like him. No, I don't like him, but I'll tell you the truth about this, and it's probably going to combine with the next thing you're going to ask about, which is an arrow up for Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's the truth of that. That thing was written, and the arrows were the opposite. Up for Trump, down for her. She had plateaued. Trump, it seems to be surviving at his status quo status, no matter what he does. But then she went on Fox, and this is the truth. I'll just come clean with readers and viewers. I thought, when I saw the viewership numbers being higher than what Fox's normal audience is, I thought there were undecided voters, and everything now is about undecided voters, a few in a few choice locations, who tuned in, who had never really seen her in that kind of setting, and it seemed to me that she gave as good as she got, and that she handled herself not with specificity on policy, no, but in a style of combativeness and in a style of confidence and assuredness that I thought could have affected a few voters. She tends to have a little polling bump whenever she has a successful, high-profile public event, be it the debate, be it her convention. I'm not saying this was at that level, but we're down to a microscopic segment of the electorate. And I thought there was some benefit to her. And then Trump continued this week to behave in a way that has more people wondering about his competence. And I mean, he turned one rally into just listening to his playlist, songs that were anthems to him, I guess he thought, and swaying to music. Then he started canceling some events. And I thought, if she gets a little over here from being tough on Fox, and if a few more people start to worry that he's not with it, I mean, have you seen the polls, Roby? They're all 0 point something in the battleground states, basically.
Right.
Any movement, while microscopic, is seismic. So that's the reason I'm not confident about those arrows. If I still used crossways arrows, they would have both gotten crossways. But I realized after doing those arrow columns for about a decade that's a cop-out. That's a punt. I mean, don't fire an arrow at all if you're going to do that. So that's the true, full, honest story of why those arrows are where they are. And it was as good an explanation or as good of reasoning as I could imagine, as I could come up with. Okay.
Finally, you've given arrow up for Sam Pittman after the Louisiana State loss last night. On Saturday night, I'm gonna give you a chance to change your arrow prediction there. There's really Mississippi State and Louisiana Tech left as potential surefire victories to get to 6 wins.
Yeah. Okay, just to be clear, I wrote that before last night's game. I wrote it and said he needs a couple more victories for 6-6. One of the ones I was expecting was not LSU. Mississippi State still looms as a possibility, as does Louisiana Tech. 6-6 anymore will get you in some bowl game. And as a ardent Razorback fan told me a few years ago, all I want is somewhere to go in December. I just want a game. I don't care what lowly bowl game it is. I want to go somewhere. And I want it to be close, and it doesn't have to be a big expensive thing. So a pitiable bowl is good. The SEC has redefined Arkansas expectations from my childhood when we were competing for national titles. I think he can still go 6-6. I think they get a nice little trip. I am fascinated by this notion that they would play Illinois and Brett Bielema in some bowl game somewhere, but I think they're going to go to a better one the way they're going right now. So, meaning Brett Bielema in Illinois. So that was why I gave him an arrow up, and everything that I stipulated in there remains in play. I mean, if we can beat Mississippi State and Louisiana Tech 6-6. And Arkansas fans travel to any lowly bowl game, they could wind up at the Las Vegas Bowl or the Texas Bowl or the this or that. I don't know what they are anymore.
Or they could be in Shreveport. So
yeah, there's used to be the Weed Eater Bowl was a good one to use in that example. I don't even know what it's called anymore. But just a trip, just something to keep them practicing in December, because that helps them for the next year, or so they say. But that's why that is. But the game last night was, a little reality was introduced to the situation, it seems to me.
All right, John Brummett always provides us a little reality check when he meets with us here. Thank you so much.
I try. I don't necessarily tell it the way it is, as a guy said once, but I do tell it the way I think it is.
Appreciate it.
That's the best I can do. Thank you, man. See you.